So that's great. He's just told my whole story, so I don't have to say very much. But that's a joke, because actually, apparently I have the fastest speaking voice ever, so you need to listen very, very carefully. And it's actually not really about adventure, it's about many failed love stories. I can't get them all in tonight, because there's too many. I've only got just under 7 minutes, but I do have a book that tells you more about them. Anyway, so shall we go? Ready? So, Kiko, I guess this is like where it all starts. My dad named me after his ex-girlfriend. Never. So basically, that is the start of the failed love. I'm third child out of 4, got a bit of attention-seeking syndrome. Basically, I became a teacher. Well, no, I didn't become a teacher, actually. First of all, I fell in love with someone called Ben Matthews, which was very convenient because we were going to get married. And his best mate was a guy called Colin, who had dived into 3 foot of water, smashed his head and became paralyzed. But his dream was to go to Cape Town, and he drove every kilometre. I was part of that. By Ethiopia, I was no longer engaged to Ben Matthews, but I disengaged, apparently, is the name. But we did raise a whole heap of money, £500,000, and seriously proved that things were possible. I then became a teacher. The top photo is definitely not what reality is like. The bottom photo and the side photos is what I thought of teaching. Fortunately, 2 years into my teaching career, something went a bit wrong, and I started being a bit funny, and things were going a bit strange, and it turned out that I got this illness called Cushing's disease, which is caused by a pituitary tumour. The only thing I could think about was going to, I've been watching Grey's Anatomy, and I thought I was going to head off to the doctors and the hospital, and lo and behold, the doctors would fall in love with me. I failed at that one. I was there for a month, nearly died. They went up my nose, took out the tumour, plugged it up with a bit of blue tack, and I walked out about 5 days later to start my the second teaching career, but it all went a bit wrong. Hated teaching, ended up in Africa. I think I followed a guy there, I don't remember. Anyway, met this very good-looking South African at the bar, and I said, "Oh, what do you do?" He goes, "I paddleboard." I was like, "Oh, it's the most boring thing ever." But anyway, I'm going to go for a lesson with you, great. I showed him my skills, and off I went. He said, "I don't need to teach you, you can go on your own." So off I went on my own, and that was another failed one. Then I fell in love with someone else, surprisingly. Set up a charity with him and a paddleboard company here in London. Totally fell in love with paddleboarding. Trash retreats, collecting sort of trash from which comes into. There's nothing to do with a boyfriend. That's just trash. Anyway, Mum thought that Prince Harry would be a great boyfriend, and I thought, what a great idea. How do I get his attention? He's quite a big guy, like thing. I know what, I'll solo row the Atlantic and I'll go for a world record. Surely he's going to hear about me if I do that. Clearly failed at that one, but never mind. Actually decided I would raise money for King's College Hospital, who had saved my life 8 years earlier. And then midway through my training, it turns out that pituitary tumour that I had 8 years ago has come back. So August the 1st, I go back to hospital. No doctors fancying me again. And by 6 months later, I had done all my training. I'd raised the money for my boat. And, oh yeah, they plugged up the little hole again, because you don't really want brain fluid dripping everywhere. Anyway, February the 1st, I rowed out of Gran Canaria, all ready to go. Shit, I've left my medication in the fridge, so I had to row back and go and get it. So that's what that's all about there. No better way to start this like very public event. Bollocks. Anyway, 3 days in, I sort of hit with these kind of waves, and like bearing in mind I've never been to sea before, I don't really know what I'm going to be kind of hit with. There's a bit of like ignorance is very bliss, but you can't worry, you can't have this fear. I was living a much better life than I thought than I would be like if I was dead, so this was kind of like quite a good option. Pretty much just the pure opposite. Looks beautiful, great photo. Sent this home to Mum and said, "Mum, check this out. It's really lovely. Don't worry about me." But actually, trying to row 350 kilos of boat through the Atlantic is pretty hard work, and there were some pretty dark times. That's on a little surfboard. The reason I've got that photo is I put a little GoPro on. It's not that anyone's following me. Okay, so this is where it started going backwards. The wind, so I'm basically out on para-anchor. I've got a big parachute out there to stop the boat going backwards. The bucket is my ensuite bathroom. That is basically everything I own, and during this sort of time, these are the times when you kind of relax and don't feel guilty about the fact you're not rowing. Normally row about 12 hours a day out of a period of 24. Sunsets, totally love the sunsets. Stand there, have a look around. You suddenly realize you're in a 20-foot boat in the middle of the Atlantic on your own, so far from anybody that the closest person to you is in space. I saw 6 boats when I was out there. There were people closer up there on a, well, I don't know, International Space Station than they were over there on a boat, so that's pretty weird. So there's my, like, sexy hands. My bum looks pretty similar to that, but it's not appropriate to show you, so I didn't put it out there. And it's also better now. It doesn't look like that anymore. Pretty happy, and like totally the small things that were, like, I didn't have anything when I was out there, so really small things were so important to me. This is a great story, really boring. That's my food, 6,000 calories, but the peanuts. So your mind goes a bit weird when you're out there on your own, surprisingly. I throw the peanuts overboard. The chili puffs, which are the green and orange things, float. The peanuts start dropping, and I'm like, that's weird. That's 5,000 meters deep. Where the hell are those peanuts going? Do fish like peanuts? Are fish going to eat them? Maybe they're allergic to them. Maybe the peanuts, the density of the peanuts is going to equal the density of the water at some point, so they're going to float. And I've got 3 different types of nuts, so there's 3 different layers of peanuts. Still no idea where the peanuts are. So that was my weatherman, and I don't really want to go into that story, but yeah, he's nice looking, and quite a lot younger than me. That's halfway across the Atlantic, and in 49 days, 7 hours and 15 minutes, I made it across a week quicker than the French record. Thank God that was just in time. I did 3,284 miles, and just to think that 8 months before that I was having brain surgery was pretty mad, and I suppose quite cool as well. And yes, that was the fastest. My brother and my mother and my little nephew, who said it was the best day of his life. It's great. He's only 7. It's not had many days, but I have it. And I raised over £100,000 for King's College Hospital. Apparently, I've inspired these 2 people, one to do a photo exhibition, which is in Canary Wharf, and this lady just tried to break my record this year. Unfortunately, she didn't do it, but she did a pretty good job. And then, so this was all about, like, I'd never rowed before. I'd never been to sea. I had brain surgery before, so there's, like, not really any excuse. I wanted to show women, particularly, and young girls, that there's more to, life than just going and becoming a mum or a hairdresser or going to work, whatever, that we can do things which are pretty insane regardless of our experience. So this, for those of you who want to do an adventure, you can join this one. Leaving on May the 5th from London and going clockwise around the UK, 7,200 kilometres, 3 months, 76 beach cleans. I'm passionate about the environment. I fell in love with someone who was really into the environment. I thought if I got into the environment, he'd fall in love with me. Another fail. But I'm here now, having achieved a few little things, just because everyone's rejected me. Great. Love it. Thanks.